first step coming into the town area. And then kind of branching off from where the new elementary schools go. Those would be probably the first two areas. So, but most of what we've done in the Heber area, we've funded pretty much all of it with projections looking at, okay, if we can do this build, get into this area over a several-year time frame, we're going to get our money back. And that's how we would look at things within the town of Danville as well.
And we want you to succeed.
Makes sense.
Don't get us wrong.
Yeah.
We want you to succeed.
And I understand, and all of your questions are valid questions.
Got told that a lot this week. Okay, so the other one then is on section 8. This one requires the developer to grant construction development, the trenching will be available. So this one's a little bit stronger language than the other one. This one will actually require, if we have a contractor doing work, 3 farms, they have open trenches, it would require us to notify them that the trenches will be open. And I don't know how that works, because we have a gas company, Dominion comes in, puts the gas in, power company's putting the power in. What trench at what point, we put a water line in. They put a water line in, I should say.
And we can spell that out. The gas company doesn't share with anybody. They're on their own. Water's very similar. Normally, we will share trench with the power.
That's, okay.
And so all we're really asking here, and I try and keep track of things such that I'm to the planning meetings, I'm to the council meetings, and so I can see what's coming. There's gonna be a development here. All we're really asking for here is an opportunity to get into those trenches.
Okay,
Working with the developer and getting into those trenches so we don't have a situation where they say, well, no, you're gonna have to do it on your own. Because then costs go up, and you're a separate trench and things like that.
Yeah, I've seen you kind of went that direction too, because it could, if they didn't have time and everybody else is down, it could hold up a project, but just.
yeah, and the
Yeah.
other, and the
Another step in the
right,
process.
and the other document speaks to that, this one does not. And so that was, and it really puts the burden on the town. We have to do the developer, so the burden's on the town with that, so I see the town incurring costs,
The,
facilitating that very thing, so.
the main thing I would ask here, and we can word it however you feel comfortable, just so in the planning process and in the permitting process, it's brought up as a discussion item. Just, we would like to see a share trench. We have a provider here that wants to get into the area, and we would be making those contacts as well.
Okay, so do you have a plan review at your, if we put that as a checklist through our plan review when we have a subdivision coming in, are you set up to handle that request at 3? Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
you bet. We work with Rocky Mountain Power, we work with Heber Power and Light. In most of the areas that we're in, I just try and be in contact with the developers and say, hey, we're here, we're available, we can serve this, can we work with you so that we can get into the area.
Typically, what is a conduit size for
Inch and a quarter.
inch and a quarter? Are you laying 3 or are you 2?
Generally
Okay.
2. It's the real duct that you see various places. We've got some going in down on Main Street right now, just north of Panda. We work with that developer there, that AmSource development. We do the legwork. All we really ask is that it's brought up as part of the discussion in the permitting planning process. So we can word that.
Quite honestly, so far you've been accommodating on every one of the questions that Eric's kind of proposed. I would think if we just tweaked it and presented it to him by next, and if he was okay with it, you probably have to run by your attorney, I imagine.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
probably, we can just skip to my last question. Where's the one that we already had David look at? Didn't David already look at the one?
He worked with them, but David, there was never one presented that David, okay,
Oh, okay.
correct?
Yeah, right.
What did David see this? Our attorney, I'm sorry. our attorney to?
He has seen this,
These two.
yeah, these two, but I don't know if he's put any.
So what
Okay.
happened, probably as soon as that was initiated is when I kind of initiated David, and so then didn't go a whole lot further after that.
Okay, I was just curious if we're starting over, where's the one that we worked on already, but if that's as far as it went, it was just the beginning, okay. Okay, I'm good with that, I think everything in there, it looks to me like we can work through almost all of those issues that I've come through, so I don't know if anybody else had anything.
No, I appreciate the questions and the discussion. And, yeah, I was not envisioning this being done in a certain amount of time. That's why we tried to start the process early. We'll work through it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys.
Sorry, you asked for questions.
Anybody else have any questions? Sorry. None being such, we'll move on to number 6, which would be business license applicants.
Yes, sir. That's my envelope. With Jack's card stapled to it. Okay, so we have 4, I believe. Daniel Academy, Daniel Creek Construction, Pat Newhouse.
That's small engine. Who's the second one?
Daniel Creek Construction, Hugh Barker.
Okay, okay.
So we got 3.
And they're all renewals, right?
They are all renewals. The checks and applications are attached. You need to sign the, yeah, I did.
I think I forgot the last time, yeah. Was it 2 places or just the one?
One on the back.
Well, you forgot last time, you just started that.
Yeah,
Maybe we're.
that's right. That's right. I thought it was the same agreement, that was weird. Like one I liked and one I did dislike.
Anything else about business license or anything? Well, on item number 7, Ryan Taylor will provide us engineering estimates of costs and revenues needed to sustain water and sewer service in Storm Haven, rates necessary to qualify for state and federal grant and/or loan monies, any other issues with Storm Haven water. We'll turn to
Last part
Ryan.
could take a while. And Kim and Gary conveniently just said there's nothing. Thank you.
Kim called me last night, and I did talk to Gary the day before. Kim's in Oregon.
Out of town?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I will probably defer that last part to
Thanks, Ron.
Spurs. So I didn't print off the whole report, but that's kind of the punchline to the sewer component. So last month, Kim presented that we've had increasing issues up in Storm Haven with relation to the sewer line. The more we camera, the more we find out, the more worried we get about what we've got. And so the question was asked, as I understood it, basically where are the rates and where should the rates go to take, to where we can really maintain it. And so without doing a whole lot of new work, back in June of 2016, so about a year ago, we did a rate study up there where we looked at the water and sewer. And so I basically reviewed this and I have some new thoughts on it, but I didn't go through a whole new document for this question. And so what I printed out was, done it up, I kept the logo the way it was. All I have is the PDF.
I see.
So if it was the 2016 report, it is what it is. But yes,
Sorry, I wondered.
I debated, but I left it.
Okay.
That's where I was when I did the work, so
No reason.
the next report will have it in order. So the punchline to that was on, you've got 2 sides to that. The small table table 9 says the recommended rate increase. And so recommended in the 15-16 budget, we increased the base rate of the water to $35 and the sewer to $12. And then next year to 45 and 15, and then 60, 59, 59, 50, 18, and then the 18-19 budget to $70 and $25. My recommendation is still that we stick with that. The follow-up to that is that still doesn't get us the money we need. But I believe that from the public that was here at the time we presented it, that's still about as aggressive as we dare go. And we'll probably get plenty of pushback on that alone. The other side, your next table, table 10, I believe there are 8, sorry. I knew it was one way or the other. Speaks specifically to the sewer. The biggest problem is there's just not that many connections. There's 16 or 17 connections. And so you take $10 a month times 16 and you just don't get enough money to do anything, frankly. And so table 8, we looked at different rates. At the time, the sewer rate was $9 a month. And so using some minimal operating expenses, if everything goes well, and we have Kim go up there a couple times and he does the bare bones, we have one plug a year and we spend $500 cleaning it out and we pump the tanks. We've got these bare bone operating expenses of about $2,300 a year. Bare minimum, nothing major happens. And I valued the system at the time last year about $175,000 to put in a new system that would do what that system does.
To the new standards?
No, to the existing standards.
Okay.
Just to replace what we have, never mind that, all the new standards and the fact that we can't do what we do anymore.
Okay.
So we're grandfathered in, but if it goes bad, we can't replace, we can't, you could never do what we've got there today.
Right.
Okay, so you're confusing me.
But we
So-
can replace it.
But you can update, yeah, we can continue to replace and maintain it.
Okay.
So,
Was that part you got?
sorry, is that what I'm confusing on? We can't, we couldn't do it today, but we can continue to fix it
Okay.
until eventually it gets to the point where
We can't.
it's time to do something new. And yeah, no, that won't be a bureaucratic thing that says you can't do it, it'll be a physics, it just isn't. It's time to do something new, I think. So valuing it at about $175,000, which is probably low with today's construction economy, but tomorrow's a new day and that goes up and down. I looked at how long it would take to raise enough money to replace it, to generate that $175,000 so we can fix everything. With the current rate structure, it never happened. And so part of how we got to the $12, or the recommendations in table 9, of $12 was that was the first number that was positive enough that we started to actually see revenue that we were generating. And I ran the table all the way up to $35 a month. And at that point, it still took 30 some odd years to get enough money to replace it. I think I can safely say after Kim working on it for a year and a half, we don't have 30 years to replace this. It's not gonna make it. And so if you extend this table out, I mean, you don't need to do a whole lot of math, but if $35 a month generates roughly $5,000, $70 a month would generate $10,000 and still take about 15 years to replace everything. And I would hazard that 10 to 15 years is about all we're gonna get out of pipe systems we have without making some fairly significant repairs, if we continue to be very lucky.
And wouldn't the scenario be if we stayed at 12, let it go, blew up, we had to do the whole system, those residents would then go from X to X, right?
Yeah,
So as far, I mean, they understand their options, this is
yeah.
one of the other ones.
So one of the other numbers that was asked is what if everybody just put in their own system? And there's a number of logistical challenges depending on which lot you looked at. And so I didn't try to do a septic design for each and every one of them, but I kind of just took a quick glance. I think 10 to 15,000 is a good round number for what it would cost to get off of this system and build your own. That would be approvable on that lot, per house.
Right.
So,
That's
so-
correct, we just
So
did it last
in
year.
16 months, you could pay for everybody's septic system.
So we could do it that way.
That sounds like a better idea.
And not having this town have to manage the sewer system has a lot of advantages
Yeah.
with my town hat on. So those were, that was that number. Grants was the other question. And so right now our CDBG, that rate study we did where we went around, knocked on the doors, the door-to-door survey, has expired. So I don't know what the average, what the median income is up there. I imagine if we do it again, we can get a similar number, I hope. Using that existing number, it's about $65 a month for water before we hit that hardship point, and almost $50 for sewer before we hit the hardship point. 1.75% and 1.5%.
So did we have to hit hardship before we could even apply for CDBG?
So CDBG, sorry, let me explain that better. So CDBG, we applied, we were below the state's low income level, so we qualified for CDBG. So as far as CDBG grants go, we're good, we can apply, they can give us money.
Yeah.
Those thresholds were for the state revolving funds, the water and water, or, drinking water and water quality. So they'll use our study. If CDBG accepted it, this other state agency will accept it.
Okay.
But what they use is 1.75% of MAGI for water and 1.5% for sewer. So taking that number times 1.5 and 1.75, we get about $50 and $65 respectively. If you're below that number, they can offer you low interest loans, but they can't give you any grant. If you're above that number, they can talk about grants. And so when I said no grants, I should have been more clear. No grants from those agencies. CDBG is still a viable option,
Yeah.
although it didn't work out this year.
Yeah.
So I guess the punchline to this report is it's gonna be really hard to get enough money for the sewer to do the repairs we need to do in the time that they're gonna need to.
Do you think, Ryan, that it would do any good to get these folks and invite them to a meeting and explain this to them?
Yes, I think it would help. I think there's some things that we could do to prolong the system. I know there's a number of folks that are dumping RVs, have RV dumps on the system that are not helping prolong the life of the system.
Yeah.
And I think there's that along with some other infiltration and and similar items that educating folks on what that does and what that's going to do to their wallet eventually might curtail that and extend the life of the system.
To all those residents that are on that system be invited to one of the town council meetings or one of the planning commission meetings, one of those two anyway.
Or maybe multiple one, do it twice so that folks that can't make one can get to the other one.
Yeah.
As far as this affects X amount of people, so we only have to communicate with X and we won't get in trouble for not communicating with all the other X's, right?
Yeah, well, if we're talking exclusively about the sewer system,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
talking about less than 20 homes. Which is part of the problem. If we could divide this out over, 150 connections like we have on the water, then we could do a lot more with $10 a month times 150.
Yeah, and to let them know what the alternative is.
Well, I don't know that going to individual systems is a bad alternative. The concern is that they would all have to do it. The last thing we'd want them to do is have half of the systems do it, and then our money, we generate half the revenue and still have the whole system to maintain.
Right, and maybe
That would be-
brought up is if you went to doing your own systems, it would be encouraged everybody did, or go the other direction.
Right.
Either option A or option B, it would be a A-B.
And then,
Is there an ordinance that if a new house started tomorrow, they're obligated to tie on to the sewer system and not have a septic?
so with the exception of a couple of lots up there that have historic connections, you would be required to have a septic and not connect to this system. So the system is grandfathered in through the state rules with a certain number of lots, and that's all we can allow it to do. So if there's 3 lots up there that are not built on, that we have to allow a connection because it's already piped and has historically had one. Outside of those 3 lots, the system isn't available to anybody.
There's a moratorium on it.
And so, does that make
That makes
sense?
sense.
Then the system is doomed to failure? Because
the intent-
they'll never have enough connections to pay for
To
it?
create the
Correct.
revenue to pay for it.
This sounds like a government undertaking to me.
Here we are.
Well, Yeah, so the water system's different. The water system, I think, has,
Yeah, we're
it can
talking
be
about.
successful. The sewer system it can never have, well, it could have more than 19 connections, but we'd have to expand it. And if we want to expand it, take that $175,000 and add a couple zeros to make it a treatment plant that we could then permit today.
Wow.
So if you want to build a house, you pay for your own septic.
And so clearly, anybody that connects, any new home connections up there are putting in their own septic. The question is, what do we do with these 15 to 20 homes that are on there right now? And I'm not opposed to telling them that, hey, the writing's on the wall. If you put in your own system now,
Were they
That's not
required to pay to connect?
yes, there's a long history there, and I don't know that I already know all of it. But originally, they're smaller lots. They're 1/2 to 2 acre lots instead of 5. So when they were originally permitted back in the 70s, this was required that they hook up to it as a community system because they didn't have the technology they have today. And so they still today couldn't use traditional systems because of the spacing. They'd have to use one of those more advanced treatment systems that wasn't available when this was originally permitted.
Wow.
It's a mess.
Yeah.
Well, it's solvable with money.
It's amazing what you can do with enough money.
Yeah.
So it's just about,
And is there
Up
a
to them.
suggestion here? I mean, we got to the point of it's, no matter what, it's not gonna work.
There's no nice answer here where I can get you a grant and we can replace the system and keep rates down. It just isn't there.
You always did that for
I
us.
know you I know you like to hear those answers. I don't have one for you tonight. Don't get the rate above that magic 1.5%. We can go to the state all day long and they're gonna say, here's a loan. And when I do the math on the loan, we're gonna have to have some really high rates to pay back the loan. I mean, even at zero, even 30 years at 0%, we're gonna need rates in the order of $40 a month. And right now, I think we're at 12 or 15. 16.
and that's possibly,
Completely different, we're at 16, so
Yeah.
40 is only double and then some.
that could possibly go up from now over the next few years.
That's the recommendation.
The cost,
The cost of doing.
and so after, I mean, so my recommendation for now is at a bare minimum, stick with what we recommended in table 9 a year ago. Because a lot of the Storm Haven residents came and saw the presentation when we presented this, and none of them were happy, but I think they all understood that that was necessary. So at a minimum, I would say stick with table 9, but to be clear, it's gonna take more than table 9 to get us where we need to be.
Yeah, they need
I'd
to,
just like to point out, we are on target on table
Okay.
Because we're at 16?
Yeah,
yeah, I think the ones involved need to make a decision. Either,
Didn't mean to imply, well, we're not at the 45 though.
I think that was the rate 12, 15, 18 in 2018, or 16. I'm
So
reading that table wrong.
I'm reading we're on the 16-17 budget, and we haven't raised the rates to 45 and 15 yet. So our sewer's okay,
Yeah,
but our water's not.
right.
So our water, we need another $10 a month.
But we just changed the budget, we're in the 17-18 as of this month.
Right. So we're at 16 on the sewer, we're right at the start. We're right on target in table 9 on the sewer. We lagged on the water. That's 50%. The way you look at it, we're halfway there.
So we're at 16, Eric, and this says 18, right?
Yeah, we're just at the start.
But I think Eric's saying we
So-
just started.
Start.
We're good.
Feel like halfway through the year.
If you graph it, we're okay, we're still on the line.
I submit that this is cheap compared to Salt Lake.
Yeah.
Cheap
Yes.
compared to Salt Lake.
Well, and the bigger thing is it's a wake-up call, because they were paying, almost nothing for so long,
Yeah.
that it's more of a political, cultural thing than, because you're right, most sewer systems are charging near water rates.
Huge, yeah.
And so,
And you water your lawn with it.
And they also throw in city lights, taxes in there. And you should see the Salt Lake City water bill. It's got the street light bill pulled into it, it's got all this other stuff.
Yeah, this is the low-hanging fruit of a municipality,
Yeah.
to go and whenever you need money is get the water sewer.
Yeah, it's right, it's just a reality check, it's just a reality check.
This is cheap compared to Salt Lake.
They have done a few things to make getting water and sewer a little harder for folks to
We
raise
need
money
him
for
at that
roads.
meeting.
Power is,
This is cheap.
power is one that,
Please.
a lot of cities are still using to make quite a bit of money. Is the power, the utility for power is fairly profitable for most municipalities.
No matter how much we say that, they don't believe us.
Have them call me.
Yeah, have them call Phil.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, so my recommendation is follow table 9. And I like the idea of having folks come in and let's have a good discussion about either a large one-time fee or doing individual systems and doing away with this community system. But we've found a number of problems and a number of repairs that are on the order of, $15,000 to $20,000 per repair. And I mean, you can look at the numbers, there's no $15,000 to $20,000 for a long time.
Does the decision need to be made to get rid of the sewer system or to save the sewer system? Or are we just kicking the can down the road?
I think we should involve the 15 to 20 homes that are on the system about how they'd like to do it. But I think that we need to explain to them that there's a couple ways to do it and they're all very expensive. And get their input on which way they'd like to go.
Yeah, it cost me 11 grand to put a septic system. I understand that one.
But continuing on the status quo of $16 a month and everything's gonna be fine is just not gonna continue to be an option for very long.
So kick the can down the
You just
road.
can't let us.
So at this point, do you want to talk about a public hearing to deal with water?
Well,
That's come up first before we,
certainly, I believe that, sounds like that's where we want to go, so we gotta probably set a date and get one out.
I don't think a public hearing is necessary.
No, it'd just be a public meeting.
Just an invite with those
you're
15
correct,
to
and you
20
didn't have to, you
people.
just had a resolution, correct? For
Correct.
rates.
You can change rates by resolution. So
Um,
just
Can I
decide what
ask
your
you
meeting you
a
want.
question? I apologize, I talk too much. Looking in the future, if there's another 20, 30 homes built in Daniels, what needs to be done to the sewer system to accommodate that? Or can,
Well, so to be clear, this is a sewer system in one subdivision up the canyon. And it's the only sewer we have in the town.
I see.
And so for the build out of the remainder of the town, the plan is to use septic systems for all
Okay.
homes. This was something we inherited that
Grandfather, got it.
we inherited.
Okay. I
I'm
know.
on camera.
We understand.
So is that something we could at least then put on the agenda and get a mailing out to those 12 or so people and get the list from
15,
Kim
20
and
people.
have them for the next meeting?
Sure. The next town council meeting,
Town council.
August meeting.
That would be a public meeting and then either decide that or the following month.
Yeah, and then another one during the planning commission after that. So the ones that couldn't make it,
Maybe Monday
For
doesn't
that
work
one.
ever, but
Totally agree.
Wednesday will. So
The
you
problem,
can
the problem
notice.
is you have the planning commission, not the deciding body, unless you guys come.
well, no, that's to present the problems and the options, and maybe the following, you get a third one to maybe make a decision, or a couple of them down the road, give them a couple of months. You know, collectively, what do you want to go, which direction you want to go?
That sounds good.
I think if we just include a notice that your next month's bill is going to $70, that thing will all go up.
Yeah.
And after that, to go to $200 a month.
You don't need an invitation.
I like John's warning, a little better, but
It will be here, your sewer's going to 25 and your water's going to 70.
and you could probably just put as far as agenda.
We'd get
that,
2 months later,
Storm Haven
200.
sewer
Probably not a
rates.
good negotiating mood, but.
For August 7th and another meeting. Do you want the planning commission in August as well or not?
Or do you want to, so the next meeting, the soonest meeting would be,
The town council, or town
yeah,
council.
2 weeks.
The council meeting, that was too soon.
Eric, do you think the planning needs to be there? At the council meeting or the council at the planning?
I think the council needs to be at the planning meeting. This will
2
be,
weeks then?
this will be the body that sets that rate. Planning won't.
Right, but in 2 weeks, or just the following month, and have it discussed to them and then voted that night, depending on what happens.
I would almost go to our next meeting for the first, and then follow up with the planning meeting on that.
Okay.
So everything in August, the ones that can't make it to the council meeting can't come to the, and of course, they can all write. I mean, they can email us or write a letter.
And maybe that following council meeting,
Then we,
try to make a decision, let them with their input.
over there, we winter and. Yeah, send that one out, Brian.
The other thing I got while I was reviewing that is we did recommend an impact fee. So if you recall, right now we have a moratorium up there for new connections because of the state of the water system. And we had a bit of a debate about do we do a moratorium which has some legal hurdles that we have to renew every so often? Or do we just institute an impact fee that would make it very hard for anybody to pay? And so in 2006, we recommended an impact fee, which I guess on camera is questionable because it does add fire. But it was almost $40,000. And so if you instituted that as an impact fee, I think that would be effectively a moratorium that wouldn't need to be renewed every 6 months. And if somebody wanted to pay it, I'll bet we could do a lot of good with that.
And if you had 3 lots in there, then there'd be a lot less for the others to come up.
Well, so it was based on, the $40,000 was based on how many new connections we foresee in the area over the next build out,
Yeah.
divided by the improvements we thought to service new communities, service this home. So basically, the system is built out. If you're on, and you have a connection, it's working, barely, but it's working. You know, any new connections are going to require a major upgrade. And so I took all the upgrades was $2.5 million divided by the number of remaining acres up there, and that's how you get, $40,000 a connection. But I think that could be the same, almost the same as a moratorium. There is a justification for it. I think, like anything, it could be challenged, but there is a justification for it.
I think that the ones that are on it need to be totally aware of what's going on, totally aware of what the costs are gonna be, one way or the other, and then collectively, they can make a decision, and then the council will have to go through with it.
Decisions made, you can drill a well for half that, so you essentially cut yourself off and shot yourself in the foot.
On some of these lots, though, they don't have enough property to get a well and a septic in, and have the
They're
required
small,
spacings.
1 to 2 acre
So
lots. you said.
there's a reason why they'd want to have connected to culinary water. I'm not proposing they would pay. I think that the plan talks about grants and other long-term solutions to improve the water system. This is just one way with passing a moratorium. We found there's a lot of bureaucratic procedures to keep it in place. And this would be another way to do that, effectively do that. Because, or generate enough money to go fix it, which is ultimately what we want to do.
I have another question. If they were to be able to come up with a certain amount, could there be a grant, or would it be a low interest loan?
If we can get the rates above that $65 a month, then we can qualify for grants with the SRF program. And we continue to apply for CDBG because it is 100% grant. So I think every year we apply. This year we asked for a lot of money, and they concluded that we didn't rank high enough for the dollar figure we needed, so we didn't get anything.
So that might be, one of the options that's presented. If we go this higher rate for such and such time, we can possibly get a grant to pay for this.
So if you received the grant, could you then lower their bill after that? I mean, is that the carrot, or?
It would depend on how the loan's structured. So we did something similar for the Daniel domestic system when we improved that. And we raised the rate according to what was required to qualify for grant. And we can't lower that until the loan's paid off. So they allowed us to a 50% grant, a 50% loan, but we have to maintain the rates at that level they agreed to until the loan's paid off.
Yeah.
So So if we can come up with a way to pay off the loan early, then we can do whatever we want. But as long as we're paying the loan, they require us to keep those rates where we agreed to, or,
Makes sense.
and obviously they let you raise them higher, but we can't go below that.
That's, I think what that needs to be presented to them so they can make a decision for themselves as a group.
And this deal would be similar. I would see a low, either a 0 or a 0.5% loan for half of it, and then the other half, and then a grant for the other half. And so we'd probably have a 20 or 30-year payback on that half of the money, which then you really can't do much with your rates for that 20 to 30 years,
Yeah.
which in most people's mind is pretty much forever.
It's kind of like a toll road. The
Yes.
toll's gonna pay for the road, but the toll never goes away.
Also,
So I got a question. Why is the town obligated to provide those 3 houses a hookup if it's been discontinued for longer than a year?
Great question.
Why do we have to plug a hole? I mean, the boat's sinking, can't we plug the hole? We have to let it hook up.
On at least one of them that's never had a house, I think that's a great argument. On the other ones that had a connection and it went away, but where it's gone away for more than a year, that's a great question.
And it's changed ownership, the town took over.
I think it's a great question for Dave.
and we've utilized that principle before.
Yeah. Do they force us to sing? Maybe. We'll talk about that in a minute, won't we?
I don't know, that's a great question though. I'd say that should probably be deferred to legal though.
That's probably a great question for David.
As in,
As in an emotion.
I'll just,
Have maybe that answer
Would you
before
like
we
to make a
have
motion?
next meeting.
They feel entertained, well, I'll make one.
need a motion, if we need a motion, talk to David, make it so.
Yeah, because if we can stop that.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I think the larger discussion is it's zoned RA5. Are we allowing continued uses, or, I mean, it says in the code, ultimately the purpose of the zone is to come into compliance over time. Do those remain buildable lots? Do we allow those connections? At what point do we say we want those lots to become RA5?
How about just this question for now?
Yeah, well, I think that one's, it's two-sided because it's an approved subdivision. So it's just not
Challenging.
able.
It's challenging, yes.
Yeah.
You have to decide that none of those lots can be built on, which is a really good legal
We're gonna
question.
get them all to the meeting.
Right?
Current and future.
They'll do
Well,
it.
like
I mean,
surprises.
I say I want to make sure Dave earns his money on this one.
There's a lot of money involved here.
I mean, if we're headed down this road and it looks ugly, why do we gotta keep it going further and further?
And that's, that's gonna have to,
Is anybody looking at those 2 or 3 lots?
Yes.
Constantly. Constantly.
Right, so,
We're fielding calls on those.
right, but so if David gives us a clarification with regards to those hookups, that just helps you be able to pass that along to the folks, and.
Absolutely.
Other than that, that's just, it's just clarification on what they can and can't do for their bill.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm aware of that, but they can't hook into the public sewer system, so.
We've been told that there's a building permit for one of them,
But we don't know where that is.
but we can't find it, so we don't know who he submitted it to.
I saw logos here somewhere, I might be able to that logo.
No, I actually checked there too. So he didn't
That
submit it.
doesn't mean anything, though.
So the way I heard about it was he called the county fire marshal about needing it to be sprinklered. And he was upset that it required sprinklers, but we can't find any copy of the permit in any location.
So whoever's got it, at least told him he had to sprinkle it.
So as soon as we find that, we may have this, can you connect to the sewer question pretty quick here.
Yeah, that may come up right away.
you might be at the meeting.
I can get that done next few days. Anything else for Ryan with regards to rates for Storm Haven?
Okay, so we got the date set.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We got the date set in our next council meeting.
I hope that bad news was helpful.
It was very helpful.
Okay,
Thank
is somebody gonna contact, help me, Ryan? The, social media,
Twitter.
Lisa. Somebody gonna contact her. They have a group that they send out.
As far as notifying them of the meeting and the
Uh-huh.
dates.
Yeah,
Okay, I can do
Lisa
that.
Dingo has, all, everybody's email, I guess, or contact information.
She's done that a few times for you, hasn't
She
she?
has.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. So both Gary called and Kim's out of town with regards to Daniel municipal water issues as necessary. The only thing that I could come up with, I did nothing came up with Daniel municipal per se. Does anybody know of anything other than, nothing, as far as Daniel municipal?
No, I don't think,
Okay. There was a water leak that was worked on twice, and I guess it's just that there's still a very minor leak that they have not solved, but it's still being digested. Is that solved?
That one's up in Stormhaven, isn't it? So
Yeah.
I think Daniel Municipal's been fairly
You're right.
quiet. Stormhaven, we've got the one leak that they're still working on connecting. And I learned something new. There's a new way to do a tap on the main that I didn't think would work, but apparently it does. You drill a hole in the pipe, and then you're in the plastic pipe, and then you just thread your metal, you find a metal thread and you just thread it into the pipe and call it good, bury it. And it lasts for about 35 years. Yeah, apparently. So
Until it leaks.
like I told Kim the other day, I said apparently I required the town to spend an awful lot of money that was just wasted by actually putting saddles and things that last on pipe. But anyway, so they covered that the other day and are working on finding a saddle for some
Yeah.
strange sized pipe.
Well, and so you're right, it was that Stormhaven, but other than that, as far as water issues for either Stormhaven and or municipal, I don't have anything other than that leak. Does anybody?
the only other thing we was gonna talk about, and I don't know if you wanna do it during planning, and that's private versus public water lines. We have 3 farms that ran a water line down a private lane, but is it public or is it private? That one we've determined is public.
The water line.
Yes, I assume that's, I didn't blue stake it because I thought it was private, and we got clarification to get back out there and mark it, so I did. So, we didn't require that as they ran that, whether that would be a private water line or a public water line. How do we want to handle these? We have several of these coming up with this, with our flag lot standard. So they're gonna be running water lines down. How do we want to?
So Ron, on this particular water line, there was kind of a reasoning why it might be public. Would there be other subdivisions that might need water that certainly wouldn't need to be public?
So what they did, so our policy is that we provide service up to the meter. And what they did, they ran an 8-inch water line back along the private road to a fire hydrant, and then they have meter cans off of that. And so the easement is ours, and then they had to build it to our standards, and we approved it, and we inspected it. And my understanding was that it's now our water line to operate and maintain. Back to the fire hydrant, and then, just like all the others stop, we stop with the can, meter can, and then they own from there on. Eric brings up a good question, where as a private water line, do we just require a valve down at our street? And if there's ever a problem on anything up there, we shut it off and say, go fix it.
So where there's a question between private, with Eric, between private and public, where did it go from private to public, or why are you on the assumption that it is public versus?
So my logic on that was that the 8-inch water lines require a different type of O&M and contractor to repair. If you've got your 1-inch lateral has a break, you can fit, there's a lot of contractors that can fix it that are used to, most plumbers have that ability. 8-inch water lines are kind of a different animal. And then also backflow. The meters, all the new setters have backflow preventers, and so if you do anything on your side of the meter and the backflow preventer's working, it will never get back into our system. If you work on the 8-inch line, there's a valve, but there's no backflow preventer, and so there's the potential for contamination of our system. And so I thought it made sense, and I could easily be wrong, but I thought it made sense that we would maintain that big line up until the meter can, which is basically that backflow preventer.
And I totally get and understand everything you said, but as far as other ones, with the ownership being
Yeah.
Why is this one different than some of the other ones? Or is it not different?
I don't know that it is. This is the first one we've done since
For subdivision.
since we made that new private road standard. This is the first one that's been complete, that's gone in and had a water line. So
And I think
this
this
is the
one's
first
different
one.
because it serves 3 houses.
And it does have 3 lots where,
Some of the other ones will have 1, but my view is, why would the town want to own it?
And then my question would be, okay, why would it, but before that,
I mean, I understand the control on it,
Yeah.
but we're able to inspect that at any time. So I look at that as, it's even like a road. Why do we want a road? Unless it's actually doing something for the town, all we do is incur liability on it.
So built to the
So-
town
so my-
standards, but leave it private.
Yeah, that would be,
so my question still is it still up in the air of who thinks it's private, who thinks it's public, and
everybody thinks it's public because I marked it.
so it's been marked,
Go pointers.
the homeowners think
I
what?
need some brown paint to
That-
cover
that
up the
it's
blue.
Town.
so the homeowners believe it's the town's.
Okay. And the town doesn't know that it's ours because,
No, because I don't think we've had this discussion.
Okay.
I'm concerned about the installation, or, they know it's public because I said when they poured the thrust blocks and I made them tear them out and do it again, I said, because as soon as you're done and your warranty's up and I own it, it needs to be right. And so I made them tear up the thrust blocks and do it again. So that's why I'm pretty sure he thinks we own it, because I made him tear up the thrust blocks.
that would answer that, absolutely.
So maybe I was wrong, I've been wrong before, but.
Are you talking thrust block out in the right of way?
No, I was talking the 2 in the back.
Oh, okay. So we do
An old piece of sidewalk thrown in next to the fitting doesn't count. So we tore that up and poured a new thrust block.
Still, that's not up to our standards,
Well-
even if it was back there. So,
True. The other thought I had is on the backflow prevention, because that was high on my list. There's a good requirement to put in a valve and a check, a check valve and a vault. That we check that check valve and then we don't care what happens after that, it's not our system.
I agree with you on the contamination part.
I mean, 8-inch check valves are expensive, but so is 1,000 feet of water line. So, I mean,
you have to get quite a bit of backflow to get up 1,000 feet of water line.
Well, but I mean, on the amount of money that was spent on, is going to be spent on those water line extensions, I don't know that a valve and an 8-inch, or a vault and an 8-inch check valve are really gonna break the bank. It's an expensive process, but that doesn't make it, that's not doubling or tripling the cost.
After the check valves become a maintenance item.
But then, yeah, somebody's got to check those.
So down the road, as time goes on, if that's built to town standards, but it remains private, so any liability at that end is the private owners need to.
I assume that they have a homeowners association down there. They're gonna be plowing that road. They're gonna be doing it, and so something should be in place.
Yeah, so, but
I agree,
down
all
the
three of them, they all-
road, when that changes and there is multiple more houses on that, and then it becomes public, where in the town saying, now it's up to, at least up to our standards, as the road is also.
Yeah, I mean, if we need that to go somewhere, then we would have to assume that.
That was just gonna be my question next, so I know in further discussions that water has the potential to go past those lots and go somewhere else, correct?
Well, it does have potential. However, there's lots, it runs into the dead end lot, so
But-
so there'll have to be some easement.
But the day comes
Negotiation.
when that's
One
not
person
dead
getting
end.
back to back.
So I say there's potential. I mean, I don't think it's potential this year or next year, but
No, not in the.
if the right property owners make the right, make certain decisions, then there is potential.
So to end
Town
this,
standards.
how am I gonna know if it's a private, what piece of paper, what document, how am I gonna know, who's gonna tell me that it's ours? How do we come to that decision? Our council, we just make.
I guess the council, if you'll let me know whether they're public or private, then on all the future water lines, we will act accordingly and communicate accordingly.
And I think you may have to visit each one individually.
Each time it comes up.
Yes, because there may be an issue where that we do indeed see this going on beyond at some point. So at that point, you'd probably want to keep that public.
Is this, how you want to pick up on the planning, and have it for the council next month?
I don't know, whatever you want to do.
I think it would be hard for police. I don't, I like things in writing that it's clear it goes one way or the other. I hate us to make decisions, but maybe there's so much variability that we can't do it that way.
Not to make this harder, but what I've seen other communities do, more in Idaho than here, but they'll have, you know, the town standards are too onerous, so they'll build their own water system, not to the town standards, with conveyance networks, and then they'll put in one master meter. And basically, the only way they get their water is it's a wholesale meter to the HOA. So it's the three farms water system, and they get their own system ID, they do their own water testing, they have their own licensed operator for all three homes. And we have a master meter and a check valve, and after that, you know, we have a wholesale rate, and it goes to them, and that's it. The state doesn't really like that, but it is one way to keep our hands clean of things we don't want responsibility for. Is we have a master meter and a check valve, and from there, it's not our problem.
And that way, if there's contamination, we're not affected.
Yeah, because of the check
It's
valve,
on their own thing.
because of the check valve, it doesn't come back into our system.
Right, it's like separate.
It's a
not-
one-way system.
Yeah, it's not full circle.
And then, but that usually requires an HOA and a fairly healthy organization to keep that going.
If they're easy problems, me and Ryan just fix them. $3
Well-
ones to you guys.
What I don't like about those is the private water systems like Stormhaven eventually fall apart and then
30 years from now.
land here, and then whoever's sitting in your seats 30 years from now says, what are they thinking? And now what are we gonna do? So I like to build it to the town standards regardless of whether it's public or private, let's just build it right. And yes, our town standards are more expensive.
Yes.
We don't just throw out a Schedule 45 and call it good enough. Anymore.
Anymore.
Yeah, I just like, for my own clarity for future conversation, like to know one way or the other, so we probably ought to put on an agenda to be able to make a motion some way or the other. Glenn, maybe put that as well to next month's agenda.
Let's restate that, would you?
It would be discussion of, what, Three Farms water lines ownership, or how, what would be the best word?
Public-private water lines.
There you go. Public-private water lines.
But I do agree, I like everything should be in writing.
Well, and from my perspective, I just need to know. I'm happy to tell them either way, but I guess as with most miscommunications, I assumed one thing and Eric assumed another, and by the time we figured it out, it was already in the ground. And so let's figure it out before we put another one in the
Yeah,
ground.
where the road is a private road, then it would make more sense, it's a town standard, and it makes sense to me to have that water line, town standards, but also private.
They both make sense, they're both good arguments. Like Eric said, that's why easy decisions we don't need to bring here. These are the hard ones.
Didn't the city keep a utility right away
Yes.
if the water line is in?
Yeah. So the easement issues with the water line aren't an issue. It's, I think, whether or not we want to maintain it or not.
Yeah.
Do you want me to get a quarter and fix this the way we fix everything else?
You got one?
Don't tell them how we solve all the easy problems.
Okay, so we have that on next month's agenda. Any other discussion with Daniel Municipal or any of the water issues before we move on?
The only thing, again, I was gonna talk about that in planning. Do you wanna talk to them about the bad sample we got and the retake?
Sure.
Why not?
So I guess that's part of the water report, but in June, we had bad back T samples from both Stormhaven and Daniel Municipal. And so as soon as we got those results, I started to investigate and tried to figure out what happened. The most likely scenario is that our tester had a cold the day he sampled. And so the most likely case is that he contaminated both samples because nothing else quite makes sense.
You're serious, right?
Following our protocol, no, I'm serious, and it's happened for years. I mean, taking those samples and keeping them clean is very hard to do.
Okay.
You can wash your hands, put back,
Wear a mask?
You can wash your hands, put a mask on. If you have anything on your hands, or if you hold the lid up, right side up instead of upside down, you can pretty much guarantee the sample will come back positive. It just takes almost nothing in the water to cause a bad sample.
Okay.
And of course, we always blame the lab as soon as there's a problem. And it usually isn't their fault, because there's other tests that came back clean.
They blame me, but I wasn't there.
Okay.
And so the protocol is if we had a bad sample, we have to take 3 samples upstream, same location and downstream. We resampled, all the samples came back clean. I had somebody else that didn't have a cold do them. Then they came back clean, and so I believe that it was really just a sample error. And so you'll see on the invoices that were somewhat confusing. I did put in our time to do the resampling, and then I issued a credit because I don't think that my sampler having a cold is your fault.
Perfect. Well, shouldn't, if your sampler knows he has a cold, dismiss him, recruit?
Depends on if his
We had
boss
that
does.
conversation.
Okay.
His boss told him to come to work anyway.
It's kind of like going, being a nurse in the ICU and you know you have a cold.
Got to pay the rent.
So we had the conversation on sampling protocol again, and I think we made
Okay.
the correction. But in the meantime, we did have an issue. I think we identified it and corrected it, and
Handled professionally.
Thank you
we've
very much.
issued a credit so that it wasn't the town's fault that we had a bad sample.
Appreciate it.
And hopefully we won't do that one again. I'm sure we'll learn something new here in a few months, but hopefully not that one.
Okay. Any other questions for Ryan? Not? Thank you very much, Ryan. Eric, you have any other one?
No, that's nothing.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna get into, we discussed the last few months, item 9 and 10, we'll start with number 9. Resolution to enter into the cooperative agreement with the Utah Division of Forestry, Fire, and State Lands on wildland fire mitigation. So I've had multiple calls, and Eric actually has had a couple calls himself. Nobody likes it, but from the county, they have signed it. They didn't necessarily want to sign it, but as they told us, if you just sign it, well, you're probably going to end up paying the fee to the state if the fire leaves the county or the municipality's boundaries. I don't get at anything else to that statement, Eric, as far as there's quite a few municipalities that have problems with the agreement with regards to some of the expectations and certifications that each town has. So the county, who we contract with, have their own document made. So we have a state document that we're supposed to sign as a municipality, and then we have a county document that's an interlocal agreement, and there's still holes between both of them. And the county has a problem even with the state. At the end of the day, you don't sign it, you're gonna pay it, is what I've been told multiple times, and I don't know, Eric, if you're sharing.
Yeah, I met with Mike Davis, and we went through page for page, you know, I went through all my questions with him. And he says they're all valid. However, you will sign this or you'll pay for the fire.
Another side,
So,
got strong on it.
yeah, and they feel like they were strong on Russell.
Yeah.
The county feels the same. So that was, at the end of the day, all those were valid questions. The only question that remained was, will the county participate as we try and recoup the cost from whoever started the fire, the responsible party? Will the county participate in us doing that, or is that totally on the municipality? Because in this document, it says we will be the initiator of that. So he was checking with Mike Erickson, and then he said he'd get back with me on that. But that was the only thing. He didn't know. He says the county has had to go after people, and it's been ugly. But at the end of the day, sign the document or pay for the fire if it happens.
Oh, sorry.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with this, but other than actually trying to hold accountable anybody that is responsible for negligence or whatever causing a fire, are there other requirements for the town that
Oh,
we
yeah.
have to fulfill?
We have to send a report in annually.
Training.
There's a lot of stuff that will require the town to, on its own, initiate to keep this thing.
I'd really like to have information about this. I'm the chair of the new fire advisory board. So.
And you don't know anything about
I
it?
did not yet. We've only met 3 times. We're working on emergency stuff right now, so I would like to get educated on this.
So, well, so I
But
call.
not tonight.
Yeah, just so you know, if you're working with those folks, I mean, you know, us in Interlochen and then there's like, I don't know, 4 in the county and Hideout, I mean, everyone